have for you a special edition of PSL, going deep into love today. Local counselors and therapists are here to help us through the obstacles and challenges of building strong love relationships. Hi, I'm Paula Sands. It's all today on the special edition PSL. Let's meet our panelists right away now who will help us navigate through our discussion today. Dr. Steve Kopp from Genesis Psychology Associates. Dr. Kopp is a marriage and family therapist. Dr. Carl Vincent from South Park Psychology in Moline. Dr. Vincent is a licensed clinical professional counselor. Monica Clark is here from Psychology Health Group in Davenport. Monica is a licensed marital and family therapist. Sarah Beck is a certified relationship therapist with the Imago method. And from the QC Counselor Group in Davenport, Rick Martinson, a licensed mental health counselor. And we invite you there in the audience to send us any questions that you are thinking of now through social media. All through this half hour, you may do this, and you will remain anonymous, of course. You don't have to give your name. We're monitoring our Twitter and our Facebook pages right now. Tweet us your questions using the handle @PaulaSandsLive, or you can comment on our Facebook page to join the conversation. Let's get started. Communication, number one. Most of our panelists say that issue is the one that troubles couples the most overall. We got a question from AJ from Silvis, who wrote, let's take a look at this one. I catch my boyfriend looking through my phone. He then drills me about who I'm texting or messaging. He says I must have something to hide, which is not the case. I think it's disrespectful and rude. Am I overreacting? So here we go, right off the bat. Dr. Carl, you want to take this one? Let's talk about this. Is this jealousy? How would you label it?
Well, it's definitely insecurity on his part. He feels that there's something dark and nefarious going on. She has to stand up for what she feels is right, but also she has to explain that you seem insecure, you seem afraid, you seem concerned. Why is this? Is there anything else that's going on with me that makes you feel in this way? And also state her position of, I can show you my phone, but then I feel that, you know, what's next? My email, my bank account, where does it stop once I start down that to make you feel secure, to make you feel that you're safe with me?
I like that idea of asking questions of that person. Who wants to jump in on that one and have something to say to AJ about the boyfriend going through the phone? Looking for something obvious. I mean, it seems like that's the case.
Yeah.
What do you have to say about that, Rick?
Well, the Chinese say what the mind believes, the eye will see.
Ooh, there you go.
And so, I worry about that kind of behavior because you see things, you interpret them, you make things up, and you just destroy the trust in a relationship.
Is this common? Do you all see this a lot? Sarah, what do you have to say about that? What do you think the approach is here? What is their problem?
Right. Well, sometimes what I've seen is if they've been in a previous relationship where the person has been unfaithful, then they're kind of projecting that onto this new person, you know. But I like the idea of there may be something the girlfriend's doing that's causing to trigger all that and cause him to feel unsafe, and so asking, you know, what can I do to help you feel more safe, but also those boundaries of the crossing the line.
Let's have you two weigh in on this as well. Steve, would you like to address this?
Well, I think, you know, what we're seeing here is certainly a trust and boundaries issue. And so we want to get to that root problem and talk about, you know, where is that coming from, and how's that making each of these two people feel. You know, it's going to take some time for those individuals to work through this problem, and I think it's important to look at it as a process that couples do to empower their relationship to be able to deal with this in a secure way.
Monica, what do you think?
Yeah, I think, you know, in one sense that could be perhaps a red flag that this person does have trust issues. There's a privacy issue here. What's her private stuff, and what is kind of a boundary crash in that way?
Well, if we're talking about communication in this first segment, I think maybe we should jump right into social media, because that really was what this is about. Only because, you know, AJ mentioned that her boyfriend looks at her phone. See, the phone is the news source, right? So who wants to talk about how communication has changed in couples because of social media, Facebook, texting, and the whole issue of the phone?
Well, I think it's degraded. I think it's the advent of the smartphone, the advent of online chat, rapid email access, people aren't talking enough. People are texting, people are Facebooking, people are instant messaging. What happened to conversation? It is a dying art, at least in the West. It's a dying art.
A dying art. Who agrees with that? That conversation, face-to-face communication is in jeopardy.
Yeah, and when you have that lack of face-to-face, you miss all the nuances and just how easily you can take a text or an email completely wrong. It's lack of that emotion, and you miss the nuances of body language and that facial expression that can build, you know, trust and bonding.
Well, let's give some practical advice then to our couples watching. What can they do now?
Well, Carl's right on. Rather than interpreting what you're reading on a phone, ask them, is this what you meant?
Now, that's good.
Here's how it made me feel. Is that what you wanted to do?
Do we all like that?
Yeah.
Just talk.
I do. You know, I think there's a flip side to this as well. Certainly the points that we all make in terms of it kind of getting in the way of conversation, it can also be used as a conversation or connection tool. So for some couples that really don't talk much, just a check-in to say, I'm thinking about you, maybe a quick text during the day. It can be used in an asset way, I think, at times.
Well, it's how we'd better look at it, because it's not going away. So if we don't use it to our advantage in our relationships, then we really are all in trouble. Any more advice before we go on to the next topic, Steve, about this?
Well, I think you have to pick the topic and the method. You know, if you're having really intimate conversations that, you know, have a lot of feeling in them, I think you have to be really careful of doing that in texting. You know, now, emails open up to have more description, and so sometimes we can do that without having such emotional responses to each other. So they can be safer ways to communicate complex ideas that feel vulnerable to us. But, you know, the good old sitting in front of us and talking it through can always be the best way, you know, if we can keep it under control and not take it personally.
How has this all changed the way people come to get counseling as couples? What are the communication issues that you see most often? The problems that people are having in talking or knowing one another. Let's end this segment with that. Who wants to talk about what you've seen as you talk to couples, Sarah?
I certainly see people come in not having a lot of tools that they've either just developed on their own or, you know, gotten somewhere to talk. And so there's a lot of destructive habits or behaviors like criticism and defensiveness and a lot of contemptuous things that can these are the things that can escalate just a disagreement so quickly and are very destructive.
Yes, and really toxic. We will get, I think, into this more as we continue this half hour. So what we'll do right now is take a break and come right back with more of our relationship special. Next, we're going to tackle priorities when it comes to your marriage, the time you spend together, how to build strong love relationships. It's all today in this half hour of PSL. Hey, welcome back, everybody. We just had a little chuckle here together. We're hosting a special edition show today, helping you build strong relationships. The focus this segment is priorities, balancing busyness with trying to spend quality time with your partner. Let's launch off on this one. We have a question from Nate in Bettendorf. How do I communicate deeper with my wife when life seems to be just about swapping kisses as we head out the door to another kid activity? Oh, I think we've all been there, right? We know. So this is busyness. Who wants to talk about busyness and how we're ships passing in the night, how we connect closer? Let's start with Monica. Yeah.
Well, I think, you know, I think there is a phase of life that becomes very, very busy, and that's when you have your kids and they're in many various activities. Some people have 2, 3, 4 kids. They're going every which way. I think during that period of time, the couple really needs to kind of plan time together.
Plan it.
Plan it. Put it on the calendar.
Plan it.
It's not going to happen unless there's really a specific plan and time that we're going to have couple time.
Sure, because think of all the things that we do that I mean, it's on the calendar, so we do it. But if it's not on the calendar, we just don't. Anybody else have another idea about how to go deeper, Steve?
Well, I think it's important that you know, marriages and long-term relationships are habituated relationships. You know, we get into cycles and we live in pattern. And so it's really important to break those patterns. The bottom line is that the longer you're in a relationship, the more vanilla it becomes if you don't work at it. So a big part of it is changing up that tune, throwing in some serendipitous things for yourselves to do, and, you know, making life fun again. You know, remembering what brought you together.
Break routine. Routine is a killer, isn't it? I mean, you feel it in your job. You feel it in really every relationship in our lives. One that just came through, Aubrey, was this on Facebook? Yes, from a woman who's been married 30 years and says that her husband is very, well, I'm going to call him passive, and that he is not involved anymore with the home, the finances, the children, and she would like to get him involved. It seems that he's maybe checked out. Rick, you have an idea?
30 years of marriage?
Yeah.
He sounds like a good candidate for a midlife crisis.
Oh. Is that a real thing?
Well, of course it is,
Okay.
yes. Yeah.
I'm waiting for that to happen.
Is menopause a real thing?
Someday when I'm middle-aged, I might know about that.
Another 30 years.
Yeah. So what do we do about that?
Well, a fella has to be aware that this is a time of life when he begins to look at his situation and say, as Jack Nicholson said, what if this is all there is? What if this is all there is? And I don't like what I have, and I want something else. And we, you know, we do stupid things during this time of life.
So her question about how do I get my husband involved in our lives?
I think this is a very nice example of when an intervention is probably needed. That, you know, these individuals sound like they may need some professional help to see what is that underlying issue. You know, the last thing that we want to do is set them up with, you know, too easy advice here, because sometimes marriage is really hard, and sometimes after 30 years things are very entrenched. And so I really encourage this individual to seek help, because, you know, it is tough to change these kind of problems, and it's much easier when you've got, you know, a professional in your corner on that.
That's a good point, because it really can't be. I mean, there's not just, oh, there's a snappy answer and I'll take care of it.
She may not want to try to push him into therapy either. It sounds like she's upset about this, and maybe she would benefit from talking to someone.
Okay. How do you feel about that when couples, I mean, there's a problem, but when only one comes into the couple, how do you feel about that, Carl?
I think it's a very good move. You can't make someone come in and sit down in that office. Don't. Go yourself, work on you, work on your perspective, and it resonates a message. I'm here, where are you?
All right. So it's okay if you can't get them both to come, if just one comes.
Yes, absolutely.
All right. Let's take a look at our other question that we have for you. How do you work effectively? This is from a woman who is evidently in business with her husband. They have a business together. How do you effectively work together and switch from business to family mode? I think a lot of people have this problem with, you know, they both come home from work or whatever, and then, okay, now we're a couple, or we have family life now. Sarah, do you have what idea do you have for that?
I think something that could be helpful is talking about expectations and roles, because they may be very different at the workplace than they are at home, and really getting clear in communicating and doing some problem solving perhaps around their differences around those ideas.
Okay. We have some great questions coming in, you guys. Thank you so much. So we're going to keep it moving along. What we're going to do next here is really the hot button issue: intimacy. Physical, sexual, emotional. It's a big problem among couples, and we're going to speak directly and openly about it next on PSL.
Mr. Gray, your next meeting is in the conference room.
Cancel, please. We're not finished here.
Yes, sir.
The 50 Shades of Grey movie and books have highlighted concerns and relationships that our local counselors are hearing more and more today. Problems with intimacy, sexually and emotionally. Sarah Beck on our panel here is hearing this among couples dealing with infidelity and trust issues in general. We're all going to speak to that. But Sarah, you said that you do see this a lot with the infidelity issues. It can be outside of the relationship or involving pornography.
Right. I do see it a lot. Probably 3/4 of the couples that I see have had more affairs than pornography, but certainly a mix of both.
And so, the remedy?
The remedy, well, obviously it's horrendous broken trust, and it takes a good, 1 to 2 years, or more to heal from something like this. It's a process, but there's a couple main things. Is one, research shows that couples need to keep talking about it, but in a way that's not shaming and blaming, and in a way where it puts the offender more into the healer role rather than the wounder role, and becoming a listener and validating the person's feelings as they get triggered over the course of time.
Well, Dr. Vincent, I know that you say a lot about sexual communication being more emotional even than physical sometimes.
Indeed. I find a lot of my clients have stopped talking about their intimate needs with their partners. They fall into a routine, the same 5 things. 17 years later, it's a little flat. People need to think, people need to develop and change together. It takes research of sorts. You can jump online for that. You can, but it takes the need to go and talk together. It's not a naughty topic amongst adults.
Well, isn't that interesting how sexualized we all believe our society is? Yet we don't talk to each other, the person that you're closest to. What's this side of the room have to say about that?
I think there's a lot of assuming that happens after a while.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And one partner is assuming what the other likes and what they don't like, and it's not really, as the doctor said, not talked about specifically about what each other likes, and change it up once in a while.
Okay, so mix it up once in a while, and the talking to each other maybe first.
Intimacy really does have to start outside the bedroom.
All right.
People have to really feel connected outside of the bedroom to feel connected and intimate inside.
Any other ideas about that from you, Steve?
Well, you know, I think sex a lot of times is the 5% problem that it becomes a 95% feeling, right? You know, that people overgeneralize this topic. And that has a lot to do with the fact that we're very vulnerable when we're talking about our sexuality. And so we have to be very sensitive when talking to our spouse about sex. You know, we have to be affirming and understanding and non-judgmental. You know, now we all have varying interests, you know, and varying sexual preferences, and we have to go into that understanding that it is a developmental part of a marriage and a relationship to negotiate those needs and wants.
When you talk as a couple with a counselor, how does that normally go, Rick? When you counsel couples about that topic that's so personal?
Well, I ask what their hopes are, what their expectations are, what they want from that part of their relationship, how they want to express themselves, how often they want to express themselves in that way. None of those things are discussed.
Are they willing to say that in the room with you?
Eventually, yes.
Yes?
Eventually. It's a little difficult because there's often a lot of other emotion attached to it. Rejection and feeling used and disappointment and all kinds of things.
Well, often a couple will come in and bring that and put it on the table right away.
It's like, this is our problem.
It's like, you know, we're not having sex and we haven't for a long time, and, you know, they will bring it up to discuss it.
Another aspect I find, though, is it was mentioned earlier how sex is kind of the end result and intimacy starts outside the bedroom, and I think you're very right. A lot of couples don't do non-sexual intimacy well. Where's the proximity? Where's the touching? Where's the nurturing? Where's the reaffirming? Where's the back rubbing? Where's the foot rubbing? Where's the I love yous?
Well, the other main question we've been getting about divorce, breakup, forgiveness, those topics, building trust, those are the big issues to wrap up our special Building Strong Love Relationships, and we'll do it next. Stick around. We have covered a lot of ground in quickly, I would say, in our relationship special today. Here's a resource you might want to check out, 5 Love Languages. This is a website you can go to. There are the 5 different love languages, a way to express yourselves. And nearly everyone on the panel agrees that's a good resource. Only one person said that he doesn't use it in his practice. But you can go online and look up more on that, 5lovelanguages.com. In this final segment, let's talk trust and healing from divorce and exes. Here's a specific question about that from Julie in East Moline, who asks, how should I respond when a boyfriend brings up his ex who he's been broken up with for over a year? She's mentioned on a daily basis. What does Rick think of that? Let's start there, Rick.
Well, it's odd. I don't see this in therapy much, but there's clearly something. He hasn't separated from this woman and cleaved to his new woman, which is going to be a real problem in this relationship.
Okay, so that's a red flag.
Oh, absolutely.
Yes. Now,
It's a 3x5 red flag.
A 3x5 red flag. Steve, you see a lot of this, ex problems, you know, divorce problems when you counsel people?
Unfortunately, we do. And, you know, I think I want to, I forget her name, but I want to address her
Julie.
Julie. So Julie has a very, very good question here about how she should deal with that. And what I'm going to advise her to do is to do it genuinely and authentically. That, you know, she needs to share the way she feels about this and talk to him about what's that doing to her emotionally. Because that's really invalidating to talk about our spouse like that. And it sets them up really for a lot of insecurity, jealousy, bitterness, and resentment.
Yes.
And all those things are going to undermine this relationship.
Well, we have another question. It's about trust. The most effective way, this person asked, what is the most effective way to build build trust and nurture healing after a breach of trust. So it could be infidelity. It could be, something where I don't trust you anymore, but we're going to forgive and move on. What do you think how can we help this anonymous viewer in this way, Sarah?
Well, I think it's important to remember that trust is integrity over time, and so you're going to need time, little by little, for trust to be redeveloped. But at the same time, for couples to intentionally be engaged in being very positive toward each other, thinking the best of each other, thinking positively about each other and the relationship, but also helping the person who's done the wounding perhaps to have an opportunity to really validate those feelings on the other person.
We're down to our last minute or so, so I just want to get some final words from just a couple of you. Monica, what do you think is a good way to kind of wrap bottom line here for us and what we've learned today?
What we've learned today, I think, is that relationships are actually not easy. They require a lot of thought and a lot of effort on an ongoing basis. And I would say that, trust and integrity is very important.
Dr. Carl?
Your relationship, any relationship, is a living plant. It grows, it blooms, but you must sustain it. It needs attention, energy, sacrifice. It needs it all.
That was excellent right there, right? Thanks so much for joining us, all of you, for Building Strong Love Relationships today. Here's hoping that something you heard today will make a difference for you. Thanks to our panel of experts and all of you for your questions on email, Facebook, Twitter. Have a great evening. Thanks for watching.